And I'm not going to get the whole thing done, but we will finish it up in 2 weeks. Then we'll be in chapter 19. 17 and 18 kind of roll together. 18 kind of sums up things that, because you're dealing with a religious institution, whereas in chapter 13, the book of Revelation dealt with the Antichrist and the false prophet. In chapter 17 and 18, you're dealing with a worldwide religious institution that's going to be hand in hand with the beast. I don't, people think, somehow they think the devil has nothing to do with religion. He's all about religion. Matter of fact, there's not a devil-possessed man in the New Testament that confronted Jesus Christ that wasn't religious. He knew exactly who he was. He fell down and worshiped him. He may not have liked him, but he had to fall down and worship him. So just because, religion's going to damn more people to hell than any of the 10 things you can list. Because most of the world is religious. They're not atheists. Most people have enough sense to know that there's a God. And the problem is they just get the wrong one and start to worship in a stump or a rock or something like that, some idol or some false god, and they don't find the true God, but at least they know there is one. When you're dealing with an atheist, you're kind of starting at ground level. Not even ground level, you're below the ground. But, it's like, I tell you that probably the easiest group to win, I have to say, are Roman Catholics, because they have the fundamental understanding of certain doctrines. You're not trying to convince them of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. If they're Roman Catholic, they believe it. You're not trying to convince them of the virgin birth. You're not trying to convince them of the ascension of Christ, the deity of Christ. They believe all those things. What they don't believe in is salvation is a free gift. They believe they're working for it. And because of that, that keeps them from being saved. But it's not of works, lest any man should boast. So that's why you have to deal with them about the works issue. But you don't have to, if you're dealing with some Jehovah's Witness, you've got a few more hurdles to climb, because he doesn't believe that Jesus Christ is God. He doesn't believe that he's sinless. You've got other groups that hold different views of that. But so you've got some things you got to deal with each cult. Any religion that teaches works is a cult. Doesn't matter. If they teach that it's by works, if you don't get saved, none of it matters anyway. You understand? None of the doctrine. If you're lost and you end up in hell, none of it matters. So at least you got to get that right. Salvation is by grace through faith. Not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. So anyway, we're dealing with an institution here, a religious institution that believes in a work salvation. At least now that's what they're preaching. When we get to chapter 18, the Antichrist, as the man of sin, has been at work on the earth for 3 or more years. He's been at it. Look at Daniel 9:27. I'm just going to give you a verse with each one of these points, and then we're going to move on. In Daniel 9:27, when talking about the 70 weeks of Daniel and this last 70th week, it says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." That's always the reason why we say the tribulation is 7 years long. Why? There's 1 week left, and it's weeks of years. From the time this thing is given, there's 69 weeks, and 483 years later, you have Calvary, 33 AD. It's exactly 483 years from the time that the lost it. I'm trying to think what, the commandment to go and to restore Jerusalem. Thank you. And that's in Nehemiah chapter 2. So all of that was fulfilled through the 69th week with 1 week remaining, which is 7 years, and that's why we always say the tribulation is 7 years. 1 week remains. He will come and confirm the covenant. This will be the Mosaic covenant for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So Israel begins sacrificing, and as they're sacrificing, he comes along, he convinces them that he's the Messiah, and then when he's finally at Jerusalem, probably sitting in the temple that he's had them rebuild over those 3 years, he causes the daily oblations or sacrifices to cease, because he's going to start sacrificing something else on that altar. And it's going to be an abomination. 3 things, I believe it's the saints end up on that altar, but pigs and dogs, things that are unclean, he'll offer them. It says, and look what it says, and for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, that's the end, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. He's talking about the whole tribulation there, the very end, and how that thing ends up. But he's been at work for about 3 or so years, and the Antichrist obtains the kingdoms through flattery and messages of peace. Look at Daniel 11:21. This is how he comes in. It says, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person, that's him, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. The whole world is looking for someone to bring in peace. And this guy's going to be the one to do it because he's talking peace, even though he will engage his enemies. In fact, he will probably rescue Israel at some point. He will rescue Israel from their enemies. I believe that's early on. But he's got a message of peace. You've never heard a pope yet that didn't have a message of peace. Do you know that Jesus Christ didn't even have a message of peace? He didn't. Go read it. He said, I came not to send peace but a sword. He said, I came not to send peace but bring peace but division. That's what he said. He's never preaching peace. You can't have peace without the Prince of Peace. You can expect war after war after war. We're getting ready for another one. May have one before we're done with the service tonight. Why? That's just the way it is. So he obtains the kingdoms through flatteries of peace. He has reigned over the kings of the earth. He will have reigned over the kings of the earth through the largest religious institution on earth, and that's Revelation 13:2. I just grabbed a verse that kind of spoke to that. Revelation 13:2, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet were the feet of a bear, his mouth the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Well, that's the initial seat that he's in, okay? And he has great authority. Satan has his own seat. And then, by the time you get to chapter 18, you're at a different stage where he's in Jerusalem, sitting in the Holy of Holies, claiming to be God. And that's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, comma, the son of perdition. This man of sin becomes the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Well, that's not Rome. That's Jerusalem. He's gone from one seat that belongs to Satan to another seat that belongs to God. And that's what he's in this for. So his seat at Rome has served its purpose and now poses a threat to the new seat. I mean, he may want that. That don't mean all his constituents are like that. But he really doesn't care what his constituents want. Look at Ezekiel chapter 28. Show you an Old Testament verse that goes right along with that. Ezekiel 28 is all about Lucifer. Ezekiel 28 verse 2. And remember, he could, just as he can be represented, he can represent nations or a kingdom. And he says there, Son of Man, saying to the prince of Tyrus. And there's no doubt about who he's talking to as you read down through here. Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the seat of God, in the midst of the seas, that's usually in relation to nations, yet thou art a man, and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. And then he goes on to say, behold, thou art wiser than Daniel, there's no secret that can be hid from thee. And he goes down through there, and it's obvious who he's talking to. He's talking to Satan. And he starts getting into the trafficking and the merchandise and all the things that we're actually going to be talking about tonight. But once he gets into that new seat, that old seat becomes a problem. It's a seat of authority that's been running the nations, and he wants to run all the nations from Jerusalem. There's probably about, I don't know how many cardinals there are, but they might have a problem with that. The 10 kings controlling the world give their kingdoms and control to the beast. And we read that in chapter 17. Look at Revelation 17:13. Revelation 17, verse 13. It says, these have one mind, talking about these 10 horns, which are 10 kings, verse 12. These have one mind, shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So, if they're ruling the world in the sense that there is the 10 kings ruling the world, when the time comes, they're going to shift their allegiance to Jerusalem, to the seat at Jerusalem, rather than where it's going to be in Rome. So chapter 18 is describing the destruction of this city by these 10 kings at the behest of the beast. It's kind of, you're kind of reading it, you're like, what? And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, just what's happening here? He's destroying the very religious system that propels him into power. Yes, he is. Which tells you he really doesn't care one bit about what happens to mankind. Revelation 17, verse 16 and 17 says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast, unto the words of God, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So, here's where God and the devil are in perfect agreement. Destroyer. Now, the devil has his reason, but God has his. And we're going to see what God's reason is in chapter 18 here. All right, look at 18, verse 1. He said, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Now, angels, they're messengers. They have appearances. They represent people and children, and I mean, there could be all kinds of representations. There's also signs. There's some that appeared as lightning. This angel is connected with great power, it says. So great that it could light up the earth. And we're going to be getting some hints as to how these 10 kings are going to destroy the harlot. And they are going to destroy her. And we're going to get some hints. And the first hint is right there in the first verse. Because this angel is connected with great power. And it says there, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. All right, verse 2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. It's not speaking too well of this city, is it? It's saying it's full of devils. It is the habitation and the hold for foul spirits on the earth. You have some things that kind of tell you a little bit about this. In Matthew 13, turn over there. In Matthew 13, these fowls are guilty of stealing the Word of God. Matthew 13, verse 4. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Now look at verse 19. It says, when anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one. That's the fowls. And catcheth away that which is sown in his heart. This is he which receives seed by the wayside. So notice that it could be fowls plural, but it's one, it's connected with just one, that wicked one. And it's kind of interesting to me that the manuscript that's in existence, that every new Bible is based on, that differs from the King James Bible in about 30,000 places, that attacks every single doctrine in one place or another with leaven, casting doubt on the Word of God, was found in the Vatican Library in the basement. The manuscript is Manuscript Vaticanus. Isn't it interesting? From 1881, every new Bible comes from that manuscript. And they're all corrupt. If you want to bring one in, I'll be glad to show you where it's corrupted, where they've corrupted it. Even a New King James. Now, the New King James is not near as leavened as those, but they're still only... How much leaven do you need to leaven the whole lump? A little leaven. You know, some Christians got smart enough to know, hey, man, somebody's been messing with these Bibles. Look at this, man. This is all wrong. This ain't right. Look how they took out the name Lord, took out the name Jesus. They changed this doctrine. They cast doubt on this one. And they were able to spot it. So all of a sudden, here comes a New King Jimmy Bible. And the Christians just bought into it, man. And yet they're using the same Vatican manuscript in several locations. They're not using the received text. They're using another manuscript. And the leaven is much less. They don't attack the doctrine so much, but there's still leaven in there. So these foul spirits, they infest a worldwide state religion run by cardinals. You can't make this stuff up. You know the word cardinal means chief? They're a bunch of chiefs. You say, well, they were named after the bird. No, the bird was named after them because they're hooded. I looked it up. I thought maybe they got their name from cardinals, the bird. No, it's the other way around. The bird got their name from them because it looked like they got a hood. Look, if you're still there in Matthew 13, look at verse 31 and 32. You're probably not. I'm sorry, I should have told you. He says there, in another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a grain of mustard seed. Now, the mustard seed is speaks of faith. So, you know, if you have the faith as a grain of a mustard seed, you know, which a man took and sowed in his field. Now, it doesn't say it's the right faith. You know, you have to contend for the faith. Just because somebody has faith doesn't mean they have faith in the right thing. But look at this. It says, which indeed, here's this mustard seed, which is indeed is the least of all seeds. But when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. In other words, this thing grew out of control. It may contain a seed of faith, but it is so out of control that, listen, the devils are infesting it. Because those birds, I mean, that's not a good thing. It's always a bad thing. We talk about them birds. And I know people have a problem. I mean, I've never owned a bird. Anybody ever owned a bird? You know, you owned a bird? There's some people who won't have them. Now, I got chickens. I don't know if we'll call that a bird or not. I guess we could. But they're the nastiest things that ever lived. I mean, you know, birds are nasty creatures. Huh? Bird is the word or something? Birds in the Bible are connected with spiritual communication. Ecclesiastes 10:20. Go ahead and turn there. I want to show you something. If you ever saw a movie called Minority Report, it's an old one. Well, right here it is in the Bible, and it'll be in the tribulation too. Ecclesiastes 10:20 says, "Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought." Oh, a thought crime. "And curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter." I mean, you can't even whisper something without something overhearing it. and telling the matter. Thought crimes. I mean, that's basically what they want to try to get you for now. In England, if you're anywhere near a mosque and you even bow your head, like you're praying, they'll arrest you. They've done it. They've arrested people for, they ask them, were you praying? Even if you start moving your lips, if you don't lick your lips twice, they'll think you've said a prayer and they'll lock you up. That's thought crimes. That's crazy. But yet, imagine a being that can spiritually has you under surveillance. That which hath wings shall tell the matter. And here you have a place that is not only a habitation, but a hold of every foul spirit. I like how it uses the word, only in the English, where F-O-W-L and F-O-U-L are the same word. Or pronounced the same, not the same word. Verse 3, and we're going to read down, we're going to read just verse 3, and then we'll read a whole section and get through some verses here. Verse 3 says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So, what we have here is a complete worldwide system. And what's interesting is that, Philadelphia Baptist Church, what is it? Well, you can say it's ecclesiastical. Can't say it's political. And you can't say it's commercial. We haven't sold you anything. But this system is all three. It's ecclesiastical, it's political, and it's commercial. That is the New World Order. That is the world system that is coming about. I know we think America is going to be the one to pioneer and we're going to be the top dog going forward. But in what I'm reading here, it's not us. It's not us. It's going to be Europe. You say, well, there's no way, Brother Mike, Europe's about done. They said Europe's gone. It's coming back. It's got to be. Because this is telling me where that place is, this city, and around this city is going to be the commercial hub of the world. That's what this chapter teaches. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to believe what God says. And there's nations over there that are making laws, one after the other, where they're banning masks, they're banning burqas, they're banning certain religious practices. They're not letting the kids come to school dressed all masked up or whatever, or the girls wearing burqas and stuff. They're starting to wake up from it. They're starting to realize that there's no way they can continue as a people. It's like Islam and the Constitution of the United States, they do not blend. They just don't. And we've got politicians that got bricks for brains and try to get it over to them that, listen, these people don't care about freedom. They care about submitting people to their God, even at the edge of a sword. I mean, I want people to submit to my God, but I don't do it at the edge of a sword. And I don't try to force anybody. I mean, they can tell me to take a long walk off a shore pier, and that, okay. Thank you for your time. But not threaten to kill you, murder your family, or whatever, or make you pay taxes so you survive. This New World Order system cannot exist with what's going on over there right now, and I think it's going to change, and they're saying it's changing because they're getting wise to what's going on. It's like the devil gets something going. It's like rolling a snowball down the hill, and after a while, it's huge, and it's coming down. Well, he's going to have to kind of throw on the brakes, throw it in reverse, and squeal the tires backwards, because that thing over there is going to be exactly what he wants it to be. And if you think he can't change the minds of those, you just don't know it. Listen, if the devil can't change their minds, God will. God is just as much about setting this system up as anybody. You don't mess with the Lord. He'll let you, he'll fix your wagon by letting you ride it right over the cliff. That's just the way the Lord is. He'll try to convince you. He'll try to get you to listen to him, but if you won't, okay. So this will be the New World Order that encompasses all nations. And notice that it's a two-class system. You've got these rulers, which are going to be rich. Does anybody know of any congressmen that haven't got rich? Anybody? Anybody? It's unbelievable how much money, you know. They walk in there and they ain't got, Ocasio-Cortez, she didn't have money to pay rent when she moved. Now they're worth millions. I mean, millions and millions of dollars in a matter of a few years. They didn't make that on their salary, being a representative or even a senator. You don't make that kind of money up there. But they're the ones making the law, so they know how to bet the horses. They know which stocks to pick up. They know which stocks to sell. Why? Because they're insiders. And we got a system that lets that happen. Two-class system. You got rich rulers and rich merchants. These are the rich men, the powerful. Kings of the earth and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. James chapter 5, verse 11. That's not the verse I wanted. Boy, I messed that up. Man, it is all wrong. 1 to 3. Okay. Yeah. Let me correct that here. Go to verse 1, James 5:1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. In other words, it may start off that they're living the high life, but it doesn't end up that way. You know, there's only one time where the Bible tells you that riches aren't, you know, your gold and silver can't help you. It's in the tribulation. They're going to tell, and he's going to tell you why it can't help you. It's because it's going to be irradiated. That's why it can't help you. Gold doesn't canker unless it's under some type of, the only way it becomes cankered or you can't handle it is if it's irradiated. He says, go to now, you rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and your silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. I remember one time when the Chernobyl thing went up, some type of cesium or whatever was coming out of there was radioactive. And, you know, they had those firemen. What they had was they had a big hole. And all these carbon, the rods that they go down in to control the reaction, all these carbon rods are everywhere. I mean, stuff was everywhere. And they had this big pit. And what they were trying to do is at least get everything that was on the surface down into that pit. So they put these lead vests on these guys, and they were given 60 seconds with a shovel to run out there. And of course they had on a respirator, and they right out there, and as fast as they could shovel anything into that pit, and then they run back inside. 1 minute. Every last one of them died. You say, why? Because they got irradiated. It was like it's getting 1,000 x-rays a second. And they just started bleeding from the inside, and they died. Some of them died within hours, some of them days, but they died. And we're going to see something like that here. All right, let's see, where did I leave off at? Verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to read verse 5 to 7 of James. Yeah. He says there in verse 5, he says, this is talking about the rich. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. We're going to find out that they're into killing some folks. Ye have condemned and killed the just. It's going to be the tripped saints. And he doth not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, to the coming of the Lord. Second advent. Behold, the husband waited for the precious fruit of the earth, and have long patience for it until he receive the early and latter rain. So the Lord's telling them, be patient, that they're going to get their comeuppance. Verse 4, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partaker of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double, according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. All right. So the first thing it tells in verse 4 is it tells the people to get out of there. Well, these cannot be church-age saints, even though I will tell a church-age Christian, if he's telling the trib saints to get out of her, then you get out of her. I don't recommend anybody stay in this church. Of course, I wouldn't recommend to stay in any church that taught work salvation. But I tell them particularly, the Bible telling trib saints, come out of her. You better get out of that town now. The city has a past that God has not forgotten. And not only is she guilty of things right then and there, but it says God hath remembered her iniquities, verse 5. And Fox's Book of Martyrs is the record of it. And so if you get that book and read it, and by the time you get to the end of it, you're just like, you're just in unbelief. That one church persecuted another church to the point of annihilating them, one after the other, in the name of their religion. And if you think that didn't happen, go ahead and read it. Now, they're going to pull out, well, there's Protestants, they did this. It would be like one straw in a haystack or one straw in a bale. The comparison is not even close. You've got 1,000 years of persecution from 500 to 1500 AD. 1,000 years of persecution from one church on anyone that disagreed with them in their religion. And then you've got a few Protestants that got a little bit heady and started killing some other Protestants, mind you, that didn't agree with them. That's the problem when you have, there's a difference between us and what we call a kingdom builder. You say, why? I'm here to rescue you. I'm not here to build nothing. I don't care about building nothing. If you've got a nice church to sit in, that's good. Don't need the gymnasium, But if you want to dedicate one and build one, we'll take your money. I don't know why. I wouldn't build one. But notice that God's revenge gives double. Romans 12:19 says, Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. The Lord's not kidding. In fact, he says, I'm going to give double back to this harlot, this woman, this city. I'm going to give double back to her. It says she glorified herself. She lived deliciously. I don't know if you know it or not, and I couldn't prove it because I tried, but I know this to be a fact. The Roman Catholic Church is the richest institution on planet Earth. It is the richest. There is not an international bank. There is not you say, well, maybe, what about, not GM, but the one down here in Cincinnati? Makes jet engines. GE. You say, what about GE? They own GE. Or they own a portion of GE. Or they own a portion of this. Or they own, you say, you can't find out what the exact list is, but they own corporations. They own properties, churches. They own art that is, you can't even estimate the value. It's, they say it's priceless. All over the world. I asked AI, I said, which is the richest church in the world? It told me the Mormons. I'm like, the Mormons? They don't hold a candle. But the Catholic Church has it so, it's shelled out and it's they take an oath of poverty. Yet when you walk into their churches, what do you see? You see brass, glass, and gold. There's a Father Cinque, The Vatican Billions, and that book is old. That's a time when billions actually meant something. Now if you got $1 billion, you're kind of, middle class. That's how bad the currency's gone, Used to be if you had $1 million, you can't even retire on $1 million now. If you retired at 62 and you lived to be 92, you wouldn't have enough money on $1 million. I can remember if you made $10 an hour, man, you were what we call high cotton. You were doing great. Now $10 an hour, you're poor. What? Take up an offering for you. Yeah, we'll work for food. Yeah, that's how bad things have gotten. And you say, well, everything's gone up. No, nothing's gone up. The dollar's gone down. Nothing's gone up. Still the same price. Your dollar just doesn't have any value. You always say, everything's going up. No, nothing's going up. Actually, they're probably having to reduce the price of things, having less profit because nobody can afford it. Why? Your dollar's devalued like 93%. It's only worth a couple pennies compared to what it was. I'll tell you how you know that. You just go get you a silver quarter, take it to a coin shop, a silver quarter, 1964 and before, take it to a coin shop and say, can you give me the value of the silver in this in cash? He'll hand you between $8 and $9 for a silver quarter. You see, it hadn't lost its value. Your paper's lost its value. Anyway, I don't know how I got into that. And if you don't believe me, go to something coins. I'll think of it here in a minute. But there's tells you what the value is, and anything that's gold or silver has still retained all its value. In fact, it's in greater value. It's your dollar that's going down. So God's revenge gives double. And I told you Romans 12:19, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. She glorified herself, lived deliciously. That's how I already covered that. All right, let me move on here. Now, she says, I am a queen. Well, she's called the Mother Church. And who is the representation of the church but Mary? And they call Mary the Queen of Heaven. Now, that's not my opinion. If you don't believe me, just ask a Catholic priest. They'll tell you. They call her the Queen of Heaven. It's interesting that in the Bible, there is a female deity that's referred to as the Queen of Heaven. That's Ashtaroth. And Ashtaroth, if you kind of look at that word, sometimes it's called Ashtar, sometimes it's called Estar, and sometimes it's called Easter. You only get that in the King James Bible. Acts chapter 12, verse 1 to 4. And you'll see there that Herod, who is a Roman king, is waiting till after Easter to kill Peter. Doesn't sound, got to wait till the religious festivities are over of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You really think Herod's thinking that? That's why the word Easter is not in any other Bible but a King James Bible. Why take out the word Easter? But they take it out. You say, why? Because he's intending after Easter, Ishtar, the goddess of fertility. That's what it's a Babylonian god that the Romans are celebrating that day. He says, I can't kill Peter on Ishtar Day, but I can certainly kill him afterwards. And he is a Roman king. Jeremiah 7:18 says, the children gather wood and the fathers kindle the fire. The women knead their dough and make cakes to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings unto other gods that they may provoke me to anger. Jeremiah 44:17 talks about it again. The queen of heaven, the queen of heaven. What they be? Wafers and wine, cakes. All that stuff came right out of the Old Testament. Just it's moved over to the New Testament and attached to a religion. Just changed the names to protect the guilty. You find most of the actual worship of the Catholic Church is found in the Old Testament, and a good majority in Judges. Go back there and read that about a priest that's called Father, who's younger than the guy that he's serving. And he has these gods, these aids to worship. It just goes on and on, man. But they wear vestments. Anyway, he says, in one day and 1 hour, this city is no more. Verse 19 says, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. And I don't, a lot of times, sometimes you'll talk about my hour, and it may be more than an hour, obviously. But I almost think this is real. It's not only in 1 day, but it's in 1 hour. This devastation takes place. And I can only think of one way that could happen. So we're going to read down through here from verse 9 to verse 13. It says, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. And now here's the merchandise. And the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls. Notice it separates precious stones and pearls. Pearl's the only living precious stone, or actually came from something living. And fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet. Notice the purple and scarlet. That's her colors. And all fine wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. So, when it says there, the kings of the earth who have committed fornication, they bewail her and lament for her, cannot be the 10 horned kings. You say, why? Because they hated her. You need to say, who are these kings? These are vassal kings that are underneath these 10 kings that have been doing business for a while and living and making themselves rich through this woman, this city. Verse 9 to 11 gives us hints of how she is destroyed. 1 hour. The smoke can be seen afar off. Like a mushroom cloud. Getting too close will expose you to her torment. Radioactivity. And this power lights up the earth, verse 1. There was I don't believe it was America, I believe it was the Soviet Union that exploded the most powerful nuclear bomb ever detonated. And the the blast, percussion went around the earth 3 times. Now, it might felt like just a wave of wind, but went around the earth 3 times. And it looks like, from what I can tell, and we'll look through the rest of it because there's more to this. I mean, it goes into it again and again and again, but it looks like these 10 kings get together and they say, so-and-so who's over in Jerusalem running things, he said he can't deal with this divided loyalty. He wants us to get rid of her. And so they nuke her. I believe that's exactly what happens. Rome is nuked. And it doesn't matter about the merchandise, and it doesn't matter about, making people rich. It's not what it was about. It's about what you fell for. And that's what the world finds out. So what does he care about? Sitting in that seat at Jerusalem claiming to be God. That's what he cares about. He mentions there the merchandise. Bible says, 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Just about every evil thing you can think of, the basis of that thing is the love of money. Which, while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Ezekiel 28:16, Satan is connected with merchandise. It says in Ezekiel 20, remember Ezekiel 28? Verse 16 says, by the multitude of thy merchandise, they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. And this is talking about his original casting out. You say, what kind of merchandise? Well, the Bible says that every precious stone was his covering. There's some of the merchandise. He mentioned there some of the stones, I think, gold, silver, precious stones. Well, Lucifer covered himself in precious stones, and there's a reason for that. He's bright, he's light, but he's not the same kind of light as God. God's glory is different. He's like a rainbow. The throne of God gives off a rainbow, which you notice that everybody's trying to steal away from God. But that's his. So what does the devil do? He covers himself with all different colors of stones. And guess what? He's giving off the same kind of, it's like an incandescent bulb in the sun. It's a fake light. Some of you don't even know what an incandescent bulb is now. Notice that the two most precious on the list is gold and silver. That's why they're probably going to go back to a gold standard. I really do believe that's a good possibility. I don't know if it'll happen before the rapture, but I think there's a good possibility they're going to go back. You know, the Bible identifies money as gold, silver, and bronze. That's copper. That's brass. That's a penny. That's the widow's mite. Then gold and silver. That's money to God. Everything else is currency. Salt, shells, paper. Has no intrinsic value. What's real money, God identifies what's real money in the Bible over and over and over again. Just run gold, silver, and bronze through your Bible. He even tells the Israelites when they're going to give an offering, he says either in gold, in silver, and bronze. And he mentions all the other things like beasts and all that kind of thing. But the three things that are money, those are the three that we had as money up until 1971. We had gold, we had silver, we had bronze. Your penny's made of zinc now. Your quarter's made of a little copper and maybe nickel, I don't know. But it takes more money to make those than what they're actually worth in metals. And the two most precious on the list, gold and silver, the least are the slaves and souls of men. There you go. The last on the list are the slaves and the souls of men. So much for slavery being done away with. It's never been done away with. It will never be done away with while this system exists. And even through the millennium, there's going to be some kind of slavery. God's going to recompense on people who made slaves of people. They might end up slaves themselves. When you think about merchandise, what do you think of? Don't you think of, just hear those sleigh bells? Christmas. You think of Christmas, merchandise. Easter. Valentine's Day. Mother's Day. Halloween. Those are the big merchandise, the big money makers. Every one of those originated from the Catholic Church. Every last one of them. I had something try to tell me that Halloween didn't. I'm like, wait, are you kidding me? Halloween is All Hallowed Eve. It's it's where they actually have a vigil for the saints on All Saints Day, which is the following day, November 1st. Now, if I hadn't been over in Eastern Europe, I wouldn't know about this, but I know about this. You couldn't convince me otherwise, because we were traveling into the country and looking out. We were up high. We were looking out over this vast expanse of forest and towns and all this. And it looked like there was a fire going on. Remember that? It looked like something was on fire. And we're like, what is that? Come to find out it was Halloween, or, All Hallowed Eve. And they were all the people were in the graveyards, and they would stay there and burn candles and drink and talk to the dead. Oh, we just had the kids dress up like the dead. Mummies and vampires and werewolves. But it's all there. You're just not looking. I mean, they're actually, Halloween and then All Saints Day. But the world's doing it. They're actually worshiping in these things. We just don't see it. America's a little bit different, but it's still there because we dress all our kids up as the dead. And you know how utterly worldly politicians and merchants are. Guess what's happening here? They're lamenting the loss of things more than people, because slaves and the souls of men are on the bottom of the list. That's the reason why we're gonna see later on that, we have sacrifices going on where saints are being sacrificed on an altar and they're being eaten. Now you may think, oh, that's just gone too far. I just don't believe that's going to happen. Well, if you have a 3.5-year drought and all your cattle's dead and your garden won't grow and you're starving to death, maybe you'd think twice. But they're drinking their blood and they're eating them. And the Bible talks about that, where they eat the holy seed, talking about God's people. And that's why he tells them, he says, get out of there. He's about to toast them. Okay. Any questions or comments? There's a whole lot we didn't even probably touch on. This thing's going to fall out just like this.